The battle for Malaya started on 8 December 1941. The Japanese managed to travel over 1,000 kilometers in 8 weeks, repaired 250 bridges, and fought 95 battles. But the Japanese had only 30,000 troops, while the British had 3 times more. Now, going back in time, the British troops are cornered in Singapore after destroying the causeway, with Japanese troops advancing from Malaya. The battle for Malaya is over, and the battle for Singapore has just begun.
Now I have 2 options. I can either sit down and rest and starve them out, or to mount an attack. Okay, I've decided to mount an attack and strike fast. So should I attack from the east, where the British forces are stronger but the landing is easier, or to the west, where the British troops are thin on the ground but I have to land on treacherous swamps? The mangrove swamp will be the most difficult and least obvious thing to do, and therefore the right thing to do.
Yamashita decided to launch a diversion attack at Pulau Ubin and sent his main forces across Johor Straits in small boats into the mangrove swamps.
How am I going to defend Singapore against an attack from a direction I can't possibly predict with certainty? I have 70 km of coastline, and there's a possibility that the Japanese might come around in ships and attack from the south. And I do not have enough troops for all that. And also I received a letter from my big boss in London.
I want to make it absolutely clear. I want every inch of ground to be defended. Every scrap of material and defences to be blown to scrap to prevent being captured by the enemy. No question of surrender to be entertained until protracted fighting in the ruins of Singapore City.
If I defend everywhere, I may not be strong enough anywhere.
On 5th February 1942, Yamashita launches his diversion attack. While Percival is distracted, Yamashita mounts his main attack across the Johor Straits in small flotilla under the cover of artillery fire. Within an hour, Yamashita's troops have come ashore and surprised the troops in the mangrove swamps. The British are overwhelmed, begin to fall back, and Yamashita pushes on towards Singapore City. As Yamashita's troops break through the lines, Percival starts to lose control of his troops. British and Australian troops desert en masse, head into town and riot. At the same time, civilians flee in boats as fast as they can, and there is panic, chaos, confusion everywhere.
I want to surrender, but my boss says cannot.
There must be no thought of sparing the troops or saving the population. The battle must be fought to the bitter end or cost. Commanders and senior officers should die with their troops. The honour of the British Empire and the British Army is at stake. This is a sort of notion that would stir up the spirit of the troops at the beginning of the battle. But by this stage, even the most optimistic know that the game is up. After 5 days, all of Percival's troops are trapped in Singapore City. They have enough supplies for a week, but Yamashita's plane have bombed the pipelines and they are running out of water.
Now I have 2 choices, fight to the death or surrender. I shall now send my last signal to my boss, Winston Churchill. To Prime Minister Winston Churchill, owing to the losses of enemy actions, water, food, petrol, ammunition have almost depleted. All ranks have done their best. I have no choice but to surrender. Yours sincerely, General Percival.
As Yamashita's troops besiege the city, the lifelines of British forces are struggling. And now Percival decides to surrender and arranges a meeting to negotiate the terms of surrender. After 1 hour, Percival signed an unconditional surrender. Yamashita lost 9,600 troops, while 120,000 of Percival's troops were either killed or captured. Percival spent the rest of the war as a captive, while Yamashita went on to fight in the Philippines. After the war, Yamashita was tried for atrocities committed by his troops and hanged. Percival then went back to London to lead a quiet life.
We have now arrived at the Kranji Beach battle site of the Japanese invasion. Took us quite a while to get here, so now let's go and see the memorial. It's over there.
So this is the memorial of the Kranji Beach battle, and from here we can see that the Japanese landed in Malaya and travelled down all the way to Singapore. And this one shows our current location at number 2. So this is how the invasion began. The Japanese crossed over to Singapore at our current location here, and the Allied troops actually scored a victory against the Japanese. However, they were fearful that the Japanese will cut them off further west from Singapore, and so they were ordered to withdraw. And this is how the fall of Singapore began.
Now we have arrived at one of the landing sites of the Japanese invasion. As you can see far across the shore, there is Malaysia, where the Japanese crossed over to Singapore at the swampy beaches and arrived and invaded Singapore. So this is one of the swampy areas where the Japanese landed, and there are many of these beaches all around. As you can see, now it has become a dumping ground